The way we have evolved points to the fact that we don't see reality for what it is. Just point blank, we don't. The things that you're seeing and hearing, like everything has to come through your senses, and then it has to go through your brain, and your brain has to recognize what it is based on what you already know. So everything passes through this gate of what I understand this to be based off what I already know. Everything comes through this gate of perception. You know, your brain is just constantly kind of putting out these stories based on your old experiences. And your reality is real to you.
Exactly. It's different. So like your reality, Kat,
is completely different from yours.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're on the same page in a lot of different ways. A good example I like to use is like color. So imagine someone's colorblind and we both look at our painting and I don't see any yellow in it. I can't see any yellow.
That'd be so crazy.
It would be so crazy. The painting would look completely different to me. But how can you deny my experience and say, Kat, it is yellow, you're just wrong?
Right.
Like,
no.
You know, do you see how harmful that can be, but also how much you've just dismissed my entire reality, my entire experience?
It sounds like you don't care.
Well, and it's really helped me in understanding opposite belief systems and opposing political views, because I'm like, if you truly believe this to be reality, I can show up to that a little bit easier and show you some compassion and just know where my boundaries are of like, no, that was just straight up hateful. I'm not going to tolerate that.
Right.
But, you know, it helps. Empathizing is important.
Being empathetic is very important.
A good question to go off of now is, how can you tone down the story or kind of relax your mind, especially if you find yourself in the midst of one of these stories?
Right. Well, I think it definitely drives back to recognizing that what you are doing is your choice, and what you are creating is also your choice. Even if it's subconscious, it's still your choice to create that. And honestly, you can thinking of it in a different perspective. So say you say this story, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a piece of shit. I'm a piece of shit. Okay. You can change your thought patterns by creating a new habit of saying, instead of I'm a piece of shit, I don't know shit.
Yeah, that's such a easy little shift.
I don't know shit. I don't know shit is way different than I am a shit.
Yeah.
So funny.
It's so funny.
Hello, Meow Meows. Thank you for your time today.
What we plan to focus on within our second series, Ego Death, is diving inward through our own personal transformations.
Speaking about feeling our emotions, expressing them appropriately, and not throwing them under the rug.
Dismantling our egos and inner narratives, recognizing our fear and shame.
Exploring our triggers, what they mean, and choosing the type of emotional energy we want to live with.
Alrighty, Meow Meows, let's dive inward.
Good morning, Cat. How are you doing?
I'm so good. How are you, Kai?
I'm quite well. We've been doing lots of work diving into ourselves, and
we have. We've really been getting on in there.
I'm proud, and I love experiencing these emotional topics.
Yes, and it really is like emotional roller coasters most of the time, but I'm always so here for it.
Yes.
And the presence and trust and security of you and the way you hold space for me, I always feel like I can take those journeys. I can take those rides.
I agree, and I love it because you're able to bring those topics into my life where I question, I don't know where, and you're like, well, Kyla, what about this? I'm like, damn it, yeah.
And you do the very same for me.
Oh,
it's so beautiful.
I love that. So one thing we've been kind of getting into is the story we tell ourselves.
I have really been looking forward to this one.
Yes, this is a good topic because most of the time we do it at least once or many times in our life.
No, I think we are always telling ourselves a story. I don't think that there is a way that a human being could just see things for what they are, because I think fundamentally humans, from an evolutionary perspective, do not see reality for what it is.
So like, how would you like start to describe like the story we tell ourselves? You started to get into that.
So the story we tell ourselves, basically your self-narrative, your inner dialogue, that inner roommate that's always talking at you and saying, and it's so fucking annoying. And sometimes we actually notice and we say, shut up, shut the hell up.
No
like
more.
You're kind of being ridiculous a little bit. And this is everything from, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to amount to anything, to saying, oh, I hate that person, like she made me feel this way and it's so annoying, or saying, I'm really insecure about this person not liking me, and what happens if they don't like me, and what am I going to do if I'm rejected by everyone. I know money can be a really good example of the story you tell yourself.
Yeah, one thing, I mean, always working on that relationship with money, and that's something I've been really working on this year. But one thing I grew up hearing and kind of brought into my own mind is I don't have enough money.
Yeah.
I don't make enough money, but I need more money.
Yeah. And do you see so quickly how that's just a story?
It is a story.
That's literally just a story.
Like I'm making money regardless because I have a job, so I'm being taken care of and I am secure. But why do I still feel that I need more money? Why stupid money?
Well, and even saying stupid money, that's a story as well.
God damn it. Well, what about like work? Work can definitely be a big one.
Work is a really great example of, whatever your relationship is like with your boss. Look at what that story is. Look at what that story is. And to bring up an example, especially working in the service industry, I was a huge people pleaser. So I was constantly trying to evaluate where I stood with my higher ups and trying to impress them and trying to go the extra mile just for that little bit of gratification, just for that little bit of gratitude. And I constantly played this story in the back of my head of, what are they thinking? What do they think about me? What's going on in their head? What do I have to do to earn their trust? What do I have to do to earn their respect? Why did he just say that? Why, what does he mean when he said that? Do I need to read into this? Am I going to get fired?
Oh no.
All of that is a story. And I think what's really interesting to note is that excuses are valid. So excuses are valid, circumstances are valid, and your fears of what they may or may not be saying about you, or you may or may not getting fired, you may or may not having enough money. All of those things could be real.
Yeah.
They could be totally real, but that doesn't change the fact that you're telling yourself a fucking story. So look at the story.
So what do you mean exactly by like excuses are?
Excuses kind of come down to, and I'm happy you asked that. So
yeah,
I can
I'm just
kind
so
of
curious. It's like, ooh,
yeah.
interesting.
So excuses kind of more so relating to, imagine you went to school and you're in school for something you don't love. And you're like, I really want to pursue this life of art, but I can't because I have to go to school for this. I can't because I'm not going to make money in that field. I can't because the system's set up against me. So I have to do this job that I know will make me money. All of those things are completely real.
Yes.
And knowing that when you make excuses for yourself, they are valid, they are tangible, and they could very well be exactly what you are telling yourself, but noticing they don't move you any closer to your goal. So I could switch that story and say, I went to school for this. It didn't bring me a lot of happiness. I know in 20 years it's going to work out for me. And I will do whatever it takes in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years, in the next 20 years to make sure I'm exactly where I want to be, and nothing is going to stand in my way. That's a totally different story.
Yeah. That's
but
a huge difference.
it's a huge difference, but it doesn't mean I've changed my circumstance at all. And it doesn't mean that I've abolished the excuses that were standing in my
you're
way.
still pursuing.
Yeah. And it's just a different frame of reference, really.
Beautiful. Thank you for reiterating. I'm just like,
I almost wanted to go back. So thank you so much.
course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
But so, and I just want to say too, where I got this idea, the story I'm telling myself, it's now a phrase I use often every day, pretty much for every single story that I notice in my head. I was watching the Netflix special with Brene Brown, A Call to Courage. And it's amazing. She's kind of a public speaker. She's an author. She's an amazing woman all across the board.
She's a meow.
She is a meow. Anyway, but she films this Netflix special kind of like a comedy special. And so she's on stage and, she gets some audience reactions, but basically it's kind of like an extended TED Talk that changed my fucking life. And she goes into the story I'm telling myself, specifically with her relationship with her husband. And she shares this moment where she was feeling really vulnerable with him, really intimate with him, and really close to him. And she confided that in him, where she was like, hey, I'm feeling really close to you right now. And he totally just like rejects it and like swims away, and they're swimming together. And she's just like, the fuck? And she becomes livid. But then she notices the story I'm telling myself is that you rejected me. And when she brings this up to him, he goes on about his own story, and he's totally somewhere else. He's got this anxiety about swimming that she wasn't even aware of. So by bringing these stories to light, she's like, this is marriage saving. This is life saving. Just knowing the story I'm telling myself. And so immediately I just like took that and ran with it. And I started telling myself the story I'm telling myself. And then I would go on with my story just to put in reference, this is a story. It doesn't matter if any of it's true. This is a story.
It's recognizing that that's what you are creating in your mind.
Oh my goodness, yes.
and that goes into anything that you're doing.
Anything that you're doing. So it relates to everything, but let's bring it back to like relationships, and more specifically the relationship with yourself.
So for me, I mean, definitely in the past, I was not in a good relationship with myself, or even recognizing that I had a relationship with myself. I did not care for her, or was not caring for her. I was just, it almost felt like I was in a simulation where I was just kind of playing out just as the days were going on. So feeling like I was going with the flow, but didn't know what the fuck the flow was. So I was just very careless and was just up and down with my emotions and never genuinely spoke to myself.
Gosh. And so many of us don't.
No. And I was definitely, when a circumstance would happen, I would start to create a story that I'm telling myself, but I wouldn't necessarily let it fester in my soul of like, oh, no, that's wrong. I did do that. I did do that. Like back in college, I had a not so fun experience, and a lot of my friends it felt like they just abandoned me and went to hang out and be around the people that really were just awful and mean and really disappointed me.
Which still is a story.
It is a story because that's how it made me feel. And I am now able to recognize, okay, yeah, that's the story I was telling myself, that's what they were doing. And later on going and speaking with them about that, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, Kyla. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. We just thought you wanted to be alone.
Such a crazy 180 of what reality, quote unquote, may actually be and the way you're perceiving it. And I know I had a horrible relationship with myself. Mine wasn't aimless or inattentive. Mine was hateful. I know. And I used to tell myself horrible stories. horrible stories.
What's the one that just breaks you down?
I remember believing, and people can relate to this, which is just the most heartbreaking part of it. People can relate to the idea of, I will never be okay with my body. I am never going to like the way I look. I am never going to be okay with the way I look. Is this all that life is? Am I going to be unhappy with it forever? Yes, I am. And that's a story I continued for probably a solid 2 years, just built up through adolescence and high school, and then in college it just flew out of me. And I don't know how I began to realize that I was like, this is kind of bullshit. And regardless of what I feel insecure about and the things I can't change about my body, how am I okay living my life like this? So I started recognizing, this is a really fucked up story you're telling yourself. And even though I believed it to be true, I was willing to take the step that said, I recognize this is a story. And regardless of if it's true or not, I can't live my life this way. So I started shifting that story. Over the course of 4 or 5 years, it took that much time to let it go.
What did you change that story to?
I fucking love myself so much. And also, I mean, I changed that particular story being, I'm self-conscious about my body. It's not going to be good enough for the world, so it's not good enough for me. And then I'm like, I want to change it to, I don't give a flying fuck. I don't give a flying fuck about anything, what anyone thinks, even what the back of my own ego thinks. I exist freely, and I exist purely, and I exist, and that is enough. And that's what I changed my story to.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful changes.
Yes. I think the way you talk to yourself about yourself is so tremendously important. And recognize that whatever you're saying to yourself is a story.
Yeah.
Try to work towards making it a positive one.
If you want that, of course. We highly suggest, because it feels so good.
Yeah. But
it takes
time. If you're stuck in a really negative story like I was, so I'm very sympathetic when I'm just like, you couldn't have told me I looked okay.
Right.
That would not have been okay for me. It didn't even register in my radar.
It would have gone right around your brain.
I would have thought you were lying or you were an asshole.
Damn.
Exactly. So I'm super sympathetic, but I was brave enough to make the choice that says, I don't believe in a new story, but I will work towards one. So I literally had to take a leap of faith, and that faith was, I can change the way I see myself. So start with that, and then try and work towards a good story for yourself.
So, I mean, you can go off of that story, or maybe the one from like working with your boss. Like, what emotions could trigger these stories, or what could, how can those go hand in hand together?
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because the emotions, a thought or emotion is what could trigger a whole story.
You're right.
And the story is so repetitive.
Yes.
You're like, I've heard this story before, but I think every single story is different. And you should look at, what emotion am I feeling in the story? And what was the initial emotion or thought that triggered this string of stories? So yeah, I feel like you could say anything, like the disappointment or the confusion or the lack of security could just trickle to anything.
Oh yeah. And now you're sitting there crying on the kitchen floor, and you're like, why am I here? I don't understand.
And why am I thinking about all of this again? But kind of just backtrack a little bit to see, what was that thing that triggered it initially? And I'm sure that is probably an insanely helpful way to really candidly look at that and objectively look at that.
And at least starting to acknowledge, okay, I'm feeling this way.
I don't love it.
Definitely don't love it. But where did that come from?
I think asking the question too, like, how do these stories make you feel? Like,
typically worse.
Yeah.
Because you're creating a story that doesn't even exist.
right. Well, and
Typically, not always.
Typically. But imagine, so the example I gave earlier with, you know, I'm on an uphill battle, but I'm going to do it no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it no matter what, versus I'm stuck in this position I don't love, I kind of hate my life, and I don't feel fulfilled. Like, take the two stories, they're two separate stories, and which one makes you feel better? And maybe just like slightly adapting the story we're telling ourselves to make us feel better. And what's interesting now, as soon as I say that, is the stories kind of do make us feel better. The stories of my boss is an asshole will make you feel better, or my partner is an asshole. You know, my partner didn't give me the attention I was looking for. They must really not care about me. I wonder if I need to go find a new partner. Do you see how that story can comfort you while also making you feel so much fucking worse?
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you that assurance.
Essentially, I feel like it's ego assurance.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Not definitely. It could be, depending on the circumstance.
We don't know shit.
No, don't know anything. So what have we done, or what have you done to identify the story existing? So, I mean, for me, I like to recognize that everything is a story. That you have reiterated earlier is that everything, whenever we have a circumstance or an emotion or something that triggered us, and then we start creating these different circumstances or thoughts that derive from that specific situation, that's a story.
That's a story. I always say the story I'm telling myself. And that I've used for particularly damaging stories where I know I'm just like, I've seen this story before. I don't enjoy the story. This isn't a good one. But I'm trying to be better about saying it before anything that limits me. So saying I can't do that, or I can't get that job, or I'm stuck here because of this, the story I'm telling myself.
So like the stories we're telling ourselves, how have they come into the reality that we live in?
I know I've said it before, what you believe you perceive, and what you perceive you believe. And when you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, the way we have evolved points to the fact that we don't see reality for what it is. Just point blank, we don't. So the things that you're seeing and hearing, like everything has to come through your senses, and then it has to go through your brain, and your brain has to recognize what it is based on what you already know. So everything passes through this gate of what I understand this to be based off what I already know. Everything comes through this gate of perception. So, you know, your brain is just constantly kind of putting out these stories based on your old experiences. And your reality is real to you.
Exactly. It's different. So like your reality, Kat,
is completely different from yours. Even though we're on the same page in a lot of different ways. A good example I like to use is like color. So imagine someone's colorblind and we both look at our painting and I don't see any yellow in it. I can't see any yellow.
That'd be so crazy.
It would be so crazy. The painting would look completely different to me. But how can you deny my experience and say, Kat, it is yellow. You're just wrong.
Right.
Like,
no.
You know, do you see how harmful that can be? But also how much you've just dismissed my entire reality, my entire experience.
It sounds like you don't get it.
Well, and it's really helped me in understanding opposite belief systems and opposing political views, because I'm like, if you truly believe this to be reality, I can show up to that a little bit easier and show you some compassion and just know where my boundaries are of like, no, that was just straight up hateful. I'm not going to tolerate that.
Right.
But, you know, it helps. Empathizing is important.
Being empathetic is very important.
So a good question to go off of now is, how can you tone down the story or kind of relax your mind, especially if you find yourself in the midst of one of these stories.
Right. Well, I think it definitely drives back to recognizing that what you are doing is your choice, and what you are creating is also your choice. Even if it's subconscious, it's still your choice to create that. And honestly, you can thinking of it in a different perspective. So say you say this story, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a piece of shit. I'm a piece of shit. Okay. You can change your thought patterns by creating a new habit of saying, instead of I'm a piece of shit, I don't know shit.
Yeah, that's such a easy little shift.
I don't know shit. I don't know shit is way different than I am a shit.
Yeah.
So funny.
It's so funny. I was gonna say that you're absolutely right. You have to kind of like shift it to neutral before you can go to positive.
Because if you go straight to from, I hate saying negative, but negative connotations to positive, that then seems like it's going to be a false positivity.
Right. It's like that faking positivity for the sake of avoiding your feelings.
But that could be a way for someone to create that new habit. If that is their coping to getting to that new area. But I think the neutral way is a good step.
The neutral way is really good, but if I was able to go from I'm a piece of shit to no, I'm actually amazing, and if I could believe that fundamentally in my soul, then that works for me. That's totally fine. But for a lot of people, shifting from that negative to a positive doesn't really work, and it doesn't work for me all the time either.
What are different tools that I could utilize for just changing my thought patterns towards the story that I'm telling myself?
Right. I think influencing it before the story comes up is going to be really important. And that's why we talk about affirmations a lot.
Yes.
Because it seeps into your subconscious a little bit in the way that starts to become your inner dialogue. And just an example of this, think about when you watch a British TV show and all of a sudden you kind of have this British tone to your inner dialogue.
You do.
Exactly. So affirmations are kind of just a nice little influence to start influencing you in a more positive direction. But also knowing that beliefs are a practice. You have to practice believing them. And I think a lot of people don't understand where I'm coming from, because they might think that, well, no, my beliefs are fact, my beliefs are true, but they're not. I mean, they're true for you.
Yes, they're true for your reality in that
but
world
they're
that you
not
live in.
The truth.
No.
They're just not the truth. There are no objective truths that we can follow. Even if someone, understands gravity to be different than what I understand gravity to be, their reality is just as valid as mine. So beliefs are a practice, and, it's a practice because we're not kids anymore. We don't just take these things for face value. We believe what we already know to be true. And so the things that we learned as kids, we're unlearning those things now. And do you know how much effort that takes to rewire your entire brain and your entire belief system?
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And when I say it took me 5 years to unlearn my bullshit, it took me 5 years to unlearn my bullshit.
Yeah.
And that might be a story that I've put to rest, but it doesn't mean that I don't have a multitude of stories still from my childhood that I'm still unlearning to this day.
Right. And I think that's something that we're always going to continue to work on. Even 10, 20, 30 years down the road, things will more than likely still come up that we're like, all right, what can we do differently?
God damn it. Hello. Hi, story.
Meow.
Yes. But that's a way I try and approach it too. When stories come up, when triggers come up, and I wasn't expecting to deal with that, I just kind of laugh it off and say, okay, hi. That exists.
Yeah. It exists, but it's okay.
It is
and
okay.
I'm working through it, and life's okay. It's all good.
It is all good. And I'm happy to be able to share my stories with you, Kyla.
Oh,
The negative ones too.
yes, all of the stories. I appreciate you recognizing my stories that I don't even recognize yet myself. It's so good. It's like, oh, shit.
Shit.
I guess I'm going to go into that now.
And I'm like, I saw that.
Yeah, she saw it.
We're going to go into that.
Yeah, well, many things. I hope that this could be something that maybe works well for you. I know it's something that recognizing these stories that we tell ourselves has helped us.
Tremendously.
So I always enjoy working and growing. Meow.
Meow meow.
Let's go and eat some food.
Okay.
Bye-bye, meow meows.
Bye meows.
Alrighty, you lovely meows. We love you deeply, and we thank you dearly for joining us in our journey today.
Subscribe to the 6am Meow Meows to get notifications for future episodes. If you wish for more meows in your life, you can connect with us on Instagram for questions to ask yourself, writing prompts, as well as tips and tricks related to today's episode. And, of course, cats.
If you're more of a visual person, find us on YouTube for the video version of these podcasts. Or you can join the conversation on Facebook. Share what you think, what you learned, or something you would like to add to our discussions.
To get in touch with us, or if you have any questions, email us at the 6am Meow Meows at gmail.com.
And all of these links will be listed below, so just scroll on down to get connected.
As always, we are learning through this journey, so your comments and perspectives are a fundamental part in helping us gain understanding and shifting our current realities.
Again, thank you for your time, and have a perfect rest of your day. Goodbye, beautiful meow meows.
Goodbye!